Okay, history buffs. The city and port of Baghdad, Mexico. How many of you have heard about that? Alright, let me see. Los Angeles Times, December 16, 1990, by John Rice. Was a nice article I found here online about the port of Baghdad. There was once another Baghdad along another oil-rich gulf facing U.S. troops. It was a boomtown border port at the mouth of the Rio Grande, a city of 10,000 that thrived by exporting Confederate tobacco and cotton, evading the Union blockade of southern ports. In 1866, after the Civil War, Mexican officials were fighting for control of the town, and one faction invited 1,000 American soldiers from the other side of the river to help. But the soldiers stayed for 20 days of looting, a debacle that got their commander imprisoned when he returned to the United States. Debacle. The sack was total. It was as if Baghdad had been taken from one side of the river to the other. Okay, there's not much on either side of the river today. A wind-blasted vista of shoe-high scrub, dry lakes, damp lakes, and marshes, a few fishermen's shacks, and a few strands of trees, each visible for miles. No monuments, not even an eroded wall, bears witness to the not-quite splendor that was Baghdad. Why the place was named for the great Arab capital is a mystery nobody's been able to solve, said Matamoros historian Andres Cuellar. It's extremely odd. He said that one theory is that Baghdad's founders were inspired by the Arabian Nights, which tell the story of an Arab sailor named Sinbad who sets out on adventures from Baghdad. Even in its heyday, Baghdad lacked the golden domes and tiled spires of the Iraqi capital's mosques, the twisting alleyways of mud brick houses, the brutal Ottoman intrigue of its politics, to say nothing of any Arabs. Both are deadly flat, save for a few sand dunes in the Mexican town. Both are graced by a river, although the Rio Grande resembles the puny Jordan River more than Baghdad's mighty Tigris. Cuellar said Baghdad was born when the authorities sought to stop goods from disappearing between the ships offshore and the customs house in Matamoros 20 miles inland. They decided to put the tax collector where the imports meet the shore. Today, some people in Matamoros go blank when asked about the city that once rivaled their own. Some people say there was a Baghdad, but now it's under the waters of the sea. So I was looking for some mention of the Austrian troops that were unloaded. I was actually doing a search online. I wanted to read about that. There were Austrian troops that were unloaded at the port of Baghdad at one point to help Emperor Maximilian when he was trying to take over Mexico during the American Civil War and shortly after, I believe, because I know a lot of the southern officers went to Mexico to fight for him and ended up fleeing Mexico. The port of Baghdad's really interesting to me. I think the port of Baghdad is the explanation as to why Texas never really suffered a lot of the deprivation that the rest of the South suffered from the blockade. Texas was kind of immune to the blockade because they could still trade internationally through the port of Baghdad. And Mexico got very, very rich. The port of Baghdad got very, very rich. I did find this map of the port of Baghdad. There's not a lot of information about it that I could find. There might be more information in Spanish language sources. I really didn't search for that. But I knew this map for a long time. And then one day, as part of my job as a fire marshal, I was searching through the region here on Google Earth trying to pinpoint the boundaries for the separate fire districts of South Padre Island and Port Isabel Fire District and Brownsville Fire District and Cameron County Fire Districts and so forth. And I just scanned past this image and I was really fascinated. This image struck me as being similar to the map of the Port of Baghdad. So I started looking for the map, and I found that version of the map that I showed you here, and I started to see some interesting correlations here. I started to see where the road, let me see here if I can bring this up here, where the road might come in underneath, okay, and then you've got these two parallel, almost parallel, but kind of angling in towards each other, outer roads. And then the shape of the river above it. Let me see if I can do a screenshot from my iPhone here. Okay, here's the Boca Chica Boulevard, Brownsville on Google Earth. The Rio Grande River here underneath. And you can see just centered here. Okay, let me try to illustrate this a little better. Okay, so here's the center that I zoomed in on, and here's where you can see the Rio Grande used to flow around the port, and now, of course, after the hurricane of 1880, the river shifted south. And that's why nobody could ever find traces of the Port of Baghdad, because the river had shifted south. So I think this is really interesting. I thought it was, and this was 2015, maybe early 2016 that I was finding this, and so I copied these and I started firing off emails. I did screenshots of these pictures here, and I started firing off emails to archaeology departments and history departments in different universities, and I could not get any interest. Nobody was interested in this. And I thought that was fascinating because I'm a big history buff and a Civil War buff, and I thought finding the Port of Baghdad would be amazing because TV and literary sources that I'd read said that the location was just lost, that it was gone under the ocean. And here it was on the American side. It'd be very easy to excavate and do a site survey, and nobody seemed interested. And then finally, I think it was at Texas Tech University. I have the email. I could go through my archive and try and dig it up. It might have been University of Texas, but they sent me an email, very polite, and explaining that the location had been known for some time, and the river had indeed shifted. It was known that the river had shifted south, and that what was the Port of Baghdad is now on the American side, and that there's just no money or resources or desire to excavate it or even do a site survey. So I thought I would put this out there and see if maybe some graduate student in history or graduate student in archaeology could do this for their doctoral dissertation. Or some filmmaker could do a documentary and try and get some interest. And I really think that this should be explored. I think that this is the site of the Port of Baghdad. And I just can't believe that nobody is interested in this. So I thought I'd put it out on the internet. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care and have a good day. Good day.